So, if you've driven any of those 1950 style classic gentleman's races from back in the day, you'll probably be already aware that they're pretty much lake boats. If you drive them in any chop, you're going to get wet. Well, that's not the case on this Frauscher 1017 GT. Watch this. My name's Dan Jones. You're watching Dan's Boat Life. This is the test drive video. If you're interested in a bit of a walkthrough, that's a separate video. I'll link to that right now. This is the modern day gentleman's racer. Now, I've had an opportunity, because these Frauschers are all over the island of Majorca, which I'm on this week. I've already actually had an opportunity to see one of these boats out of the water. So what's going on beneath the waterline on this 1017 is quite a bit of cutting action up the front. Knife edge style at the front, a decent amount of V stretching back from there, and then a couple of air steps, quite shallow air steps. And interestingly, when you get to the back of the boat, it flattens out completely. So rather than having the chines, it really flattens out. What does that do for us? That allows us the ability to really get up and boogie. I'm just avoiding some rocks. Yes, I'm clear. So I'm going to do that for you a little bit later in this video. We'll just take her through the motions at the moment. The options on these boats, well, they're not too many. I'll go through the features in the walkthrough, but you really just have two engine options. You have the 320 or the 430. We've got the big motors on this one. They're duo prop stern drives. Trim the legs up and down. No trim tabs on this one because the hull's doing it all for you. Here we are with a little bit of crosswind right now, and I do have some wind chop, which I'm making my way through, and the boat's managing it quite well. I'm just going to hug these rocks and then head out into it in a second before we really open the boat up and see what she's made of. But I'm just cruising that speed's consistent there, 26, 27 knots, 3,000 revs. Fuel flow, I got 26 litres, I'd say, per side an hour at that speed. To be honest, if you're the kind of guy who worries about fuel flow, you shouldn't be looking at this boat. You know, it's an emotive experience, these Frauschers. It's something that makes you feel fantastic. So using a little bit of fuel for 5 minutes on your destination to get to your destination should be neither here nor there. So let's just feel it through the turns. We've got little swells around the place, bit of wind chop getting exposed to us again. This windscreen, looking through the windscreen, it's perfect visibility, there's no distortion. You do have the wind straight up and over your head, so if you stand up, you are going to have, you are going to possibly lose your cap, so just be aware of that. Now I'm going to go into some of it and then turn around. Here we go, a couple of waves here, cutting through it quite nicely, just coming off the speed there, going around. I want to note that no water's been coming into the cockpit. Those seats back there are dry. Just watch some of these waves here. All dry. Tell you what, the birds are quite adventurous around here. They really don't like my drone. Okay, let's accelerate it. Coming through 27 knots, 3,500 revs. Now let's give it some. Give it a bit of trim up on the legs. Oh, she's got some balls. Feel the acceleration. Oh, the wind's coming down. Wow, okay, I'm at 5,000 revs. I'm not foot to the floor yet. 41 knots. Whoa, this is blisteringly quick. This is real racer stuff. Give it a bit of a trim up just there. Feels very light. Directional stability is great. I got 50 knots. This is amazing. Oh, that's so good. I feel so much control there. We even have a little bit of bumpy water. I easily could do more, but I was just being a little bit ginger there, as it's the first time I've done 50 knots on this thing. Now I'm going to come around the bay and just hold that turn on the other side, backing off my speed. Tell you, the watercolor around here is just amazing. It's so beautiful. Okay, just doing that turn, 24, 25 knots. Really good. She's a driver's boat. So What am I learning with this, guys? Ridiculous speeds. Let's just give it some more. Ridiculous speeds are possible. That 50 knots plus top speed, we could easily have gone faster if I had more runway. Just tells me we are real racer stuff, but we can just cruise around quite effortlessly at 33 knots as we are right now, only burning 36 litres a side. So that's pretty good. You can eat up some miles there and just give it a bit of a faster cruise. God, this feels cool. This is so much fun. So 37, 38 knots, completely possible. Completely possible. I'm going to start my turn a little bit sooner this time in the flat water, okay? And let's just see if she wants to spin out at all with the turn. No, she's holding that line quite well. So feedback, fun. You've got to steer the boat through the turn, but she goes where you point her. The back end doesn't slip out. Let's just give it a little bit more. And let's just S-tail it up here. Wow, that's enjoyable. This is something you go out on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, do this, and feel like James Bond. You do need to duck your head a little bit just to keep your hat from blowing off your head, or just make sure you got your hair greased back if you're like me. Awesome. Okay, so those S-turns, directional stability is good, fun factor is amazing, and I tell you what, if you were on a lake, which, you know, that's the kind of image a lot of these real classic boats are going to give you, you would just have so much fun. But what I have learnt, what we have confirmed, this boat is totally doable in this Mediterranean chop. I would be happy to operate this on Sydney Harbour on a nor'easter kind of blowy day. I would just pick my lines and cut through it, because when you go through those waves, as we are right now, she really does just slice in. God, I love my job. That was just so much fun, guys. If you want to see something similar to this Frauscher 1017 GT, click on the link coming up right now.